Hello everyone, Justin with Deep Dive Stocks here, and it's been a while. But today I come bearing some good news. LDPM is getting an update. It's been long awaited and it's finally here. So today we're going to go over some of the exciting improvements and additions to LDPM on Tradingview, and honestly I'm pretty excited for it. I wish I could release it right now. Well, hopefully by the time you're watching this it's already released, but right now being right now, I want to release it. This video is going to have 3 parts. In the first part, we are going to briefly review some of the changes that have occurred to LDPM that is currently available today. So these will be changes that you will see here shortly when you use LDPM for yourself. The second part of the video is going to go over the new addition to LDPM, which is the LDPM crossover market scanner. And finally, the third, we're going to briefly just look at a few different ways LDPM can be utilized to help uncover the full potential of how LDPM can fit into your trading style. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Starting with the LDPM updates, there are a few things worth pointing out. Let's investigate them by looking at GME's price chart, which is set to the 30-minute candles. When we add LDPM, we're going to see several things added to the screen. The first is this deep green line. This is LDPM-granular, and we can get a closer view if we zoom in. LDPM-granular is the LDPM value that is calculated in real time, and it's designed to keep a close tabs on how abundant or absent liquidity is during a single candle's formation. The second, the purple line, is LDPM-smooth. This uses one of several algorithms to calculate the average LDPM-granular to help give us a more overall stable and broader view of liquidity on a given equity. The third is this box in the upper right-hand corner. This box allows us to see the LDPM-smooth values on a variety of time frames. So we see here, this is the LDPM value for 1 month, 1 week, 1 day, 4 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, and 5 minutes. On the right-hand side of the box, we see the LDPM-smooth values, so 2034, 2108, so on and so forth. Or we see our current one, 2474, which is our most recent LDPM value. And this value is followed by a percentage. This percentage is the difference between LDPM-smooth and the price. So we see the price is currently 24.55. LDPM-smooth for GME on 30 minutes is 24.74, and that's a difference of 0.77 or negative 0.77%. These values are colored based on if it is bullish or bearish, but we'll get to that in a second. Now that we're familiar with the 3 main components of LDPM, let's quickly look at how each one of these can be customized. We can start the customization process by right-clicking on any one of LDPM's components, and then going to Settings. And not that one. Not that one either. That one. At the top, we see the settings for LDPM-granular, in the middle for LDPM-smooth, and in the bottom for the LDPM-box. Let's go over each one. Notice that the primary color for LDPM, we said it was this dark green, and we can change that to anything we like. So suppose we want a nice golden color, we can change that to gold. But suppose we would want LDPM-granular to be colored based off of if it is bearish or bullish. We can easily do that by simply clicking color by price. And we see in the background, LDPM-granular became green if it's bullish and red if it's bearish. Naturally, if we don't like those colors or we just don't like Christmas, we can change those as well. So let's say we want bearish to be baby blue, or bullish to be baby blue, and bearish to be a nice little pink. And there we have it. We now have LDPM-granular that is colored baby blue if it's bullish and pink if it's bearish. One of the things that I do with LDPM-granular typically is lower the opacity, just so that it's not quite as distracting, as it can be pretty erratic sometimes. And that about does it for LDPM-granular. Let's move on to LDPM-smooth and see what we can do there. The first decision for LDPM-smooth that we have to do is determine which algorithm we want to smooth LDPM. When we click on the moving average type, we see there are 4 options. The SMA is the simple moving average, EMA is the exponential moving average, WMA and RMA are different weighted moving averages, kind of similar to EMA. The main differences between these algorithms are how much importance they place on current data versus past data. As a rule of thumb, the algorithm that implies the greatest importance to the most recent data is the WMA, followed by EMA, then SMA, and then RMA. So if you want your LDPM-smooth to place greater emphasis on the current liquidity status, you would choose WMA. I typically choose EMA as I find it is a pretty nice balance between keeping all of the data equally weighted, but also a slight preference to current events, which is pretty helpful in smaller timeframes and more tumultuous markets where liquidity statuses can change pretty quickly. So we'll choose EMA, which is the default. Once we've told LDPM how we want the LDPM smooth to be calculated, we then need to tell it how many prior data points to include in this calculation. The default is 5, but recently I've been really enjoying a higher time frame at 20. So let's go ahead and change it to 20. We should see LDPM smooth readjust as it now includes a larger number of previous data, but since we are at EMA, the exponential moving average, it is still weighing the most recent data with a little bit more preference than the old data. Then we can change the line width if we choose, as well as the color. Now that we know how to set the settings for LDPM, let's turn our attention over to the LDPM box. Our first decision with the LDPM box is deciding where we want it. We have 9 different choices, and yeah, you get to choose where you want it. I've lately been enjoying middle right. I don't know, it looks nice to me. From there, we can change the background of the box, which since I'm on dark mode, this white box kind of stands out like a sore thumb, so let's go ahead and change it to something a little nicer. Now that we've changed the background of the box to a nice dark blue, we kind of need to be able to see the text, so we just click box labels text colors, and let's choose a nice gold. As we see, the values are colored red if the LDPM data prints are bearish and green if they are bullish. But let's say we want to change that up some. And so we just click box value colors and we move over here and select our color. So let's say for bullish, we want a nice kind of like aqua or something. And then let's get like a nice pink for if something is bullish or bearish. The one thing that's worth noting is besides the aesthetic changes between the box and LDPM, if we change LDPM's value like we did the look back frame, you'll notice that the values in the box also change. These values in the box change to reflect the settings that are put into LDPM-smooth so that they are the same. It used to be that the box only utilized the default value of 5. And so if you did change your LDPM-smooth value, there would really be no easy way of comparing these two data points. But now the LDPM box adjusts automatically. With LDPM is that there no longer is the ability to toggle different time frames on the box. From user feedback, this wasn't utilized all that often. And so in order to save processing and to increase the speed of the LDPM script, it was removed. Now that we have a good view of LDPM, let's move on to the new addition, the LDPM crossover scanner. Adding the scanner is pretty straightforward, just like with LDPM. We just go to our indicators and we go to LDPM crossover. Once it's added, this lower panel will pop up. A lot of X's occur and these labels on the right hand side. Let's go over each one of these features and then into how you can adjust them for your own trading style. So there are 3 main components to the scanner. The first is the label on the far right, and these are the labels for which stock is being monitored. So for instance, we see the top line is SPY, and then after that is QQQ, and then after that is GME. The second component are all of the X's on the lines. These represent LDPM crossover events, and the third component is the color of these events and the color of the label. When these crossover events are bearish, the X is red, and when the crossover is bullish, the X is green. The labels share the same color as the most recent crossover event. So we see on SPY, the most recent crossover was bearish, and so we have a bearish or red label for SPY. It is worth noting that the time frame being scanned here is the same as our main chart. So these are LDPMs on a 30-minute interval or a 30-minute candle that are being monitored for crossover events with the price of the equity. So now that we know what all the components are, let's go ahead and look at how we can adjust them. As usual, we can just right click on any one of the components and go to settings. The look back is the same, where we're telling the algorithm how many back data prints we want it to include in the LDPM-smooth calculation. I typically try to keep the scanning look back time frame and the LDPM-smooth that I'm using on my chart the same. And so we're going to go ahead and put 20. And just like above, we can choose which algorithm we want to smooth or to create LDPM-smooth with. And like I said, I like to keep them the same. So we're going to go ahead and just choose EMA. And we can see that the field is a lot less cluttered now because we've expanded the smooth's value, so it's not so noisy. After that, if we want, we can manually choose the colors of the labels. To do that, we just unclick this box, and the default color is this white, which again on dark mode is pretty jarring. So let's go back and make it a dark blue, just like our LDPM box. And now we need to change the color of the text so that we can actually read which scanners we're looking at. And let's make it a nice gold. But truth be told, I'm a huge fan of having these colored based off of the LDPM crossover, as much as I like this blue and gold aesthetic. So let's go ahead and put the text back to black, and we're going to go ahead and toggle coloring the label based off of the crossover type. But suppose I'm not a huge fan of this red and green. Just like above, I can go ahead and choose which colors I want to actually represent these bullish or bearish crossovers. Pretty nice, huh? And lastly, we can choose which stocks we want to scan. So suppose we don't want to look at SPY, but we want to look at the futures. We just click SPY, enter ES for the futures, and we see that the scan is automatically updated with the crossover events that have occurred on the futures. Now let's suppose I am a market scanning fanatic and 10 stocks is just simply not enough for me. I can just simply go to the settings, scroll down, and add 10 or 9 more stocks depending on how you count. And now we have 20 stocks that we can monitor, and we can choose which stocks those are, just like above, where we can just click and say I want to watch nothing but GME. We now have GME right at the 10 spot and at the 18 spot. We might as well just fill all of this with GME. And again, if we adjust the time frame on our chart, so let's say we want to look at daily crossovers, we can do that by simply changing the interval of the chart itself to daily, and we see we now have all of the crossovers that have occurred on the daily interval with a look back of 20 and a smoothing algorithm of the exponential moving average. Not too shabby. So now that we are familiar with the changes coming to LDPM and the new LDPM scanner and all of its features, let's go ahead and quickly look at 3 standard setups for utilizing these tools to our benefit. The first setup we see here is simply an equity with 2 different LDPMs placed over top of it. We have a LDPM that has a lower time frame, so this is a look back window of 20. And we have a LDPM with a longer time frame, in this case a look back window of 100. We see that I've changed some of the colors to my favorite color layouts. But the one thing you might notice is that we have 2 LDPMs, but we only have 1 LDPM box. Another thing you may have noticed is that there are no LDPM granulars. I don't typically use LDPM granular. I enjoy the smoothing effects of LDPM-smooth. So let's go ahead and look at how we can make sure we only have 1 LDPM box, which can save processing time, especially during pretty busy markets. and how we can get rid of LDPM granular. As usual, we simply start with going to the settings. I lied. Let's come to the upper left-hand corner here. And I always use the first one as like the main indicator. And so here, in order to get rid of LDPM granular, we click LDPM, and LDPM granular disappears. For the second longer time frame, we do the same thing. We click LDPM off, but this time we also click the tables off. This ensures that if we have multiple LDPMs on a single chart, things don't get too crowded with things that are redundant and we simply just don't need. I like this setup mainly because it offers both a longer term liquidity view, mainly through the 100 back window LDPM, and a more nearby or proximal or local liquidity view from the LDPM of 20. So this way I can maintain longer trades, such as when a bullish crossover occurs on the LDPM 100, but scalp some shorter trades along the way, based off of how the price and LDPM, we'll say LDPM 20, is doing. It's also nice to see if the testing of the longer LDPMs are successful, or if the price is testing and then falling through. So with this in mind, let's go ahead and watch this setup for about a minute or two just to get a feel for it, just to see how it behaves. Because a lot of using LDPM, I think, especially from what I've been hearing, is that it is more about tailoring LDPM to your trading style than adjusting your trading style to LDPM. So the people who typically have the most success with LDPM are those that kind of tweaked it enough to find which style or which layout works best with their temperament and trading styles. For instance, the main reason why I don't use LDPM granular all that much is because I have a pretty trigger happy temperament. So there are times where if I see large LDPM granular, despite the behavior of the smooth LDPMs, I tend to get a little anxious. This doesn't really work with my trading style, so I click it off. The second setup is a great example of those who enjoy having multiple levels for day trading and scalping. Here we have GME on the 5-minute with some staggered LDPM smooths. And again, I've removed the LDPM granulars and I've set the box where I like it. If we go up to the upper left and we see the intervals for the smooth values, they should look pretty familiar. Our lowest time frame is 13, followed by 21, followed by 34, followed by 55. This is the Fibonacci sequence. So we can merge Fibonacci sequences with liquidity. And now I don't necessarily think there's anything special about this, but I do think the Fibonacci sequence is a nice way of getting a fractal view of liquidity. There's a little bit of hand waving science going on there, but it does tend to work very nicely, and I do like using it. And so just like before, let's go ahead and look at this run in real time just to get a feel for it. So I think that is pretty cool. And there are actually quite a lot of interesting findings and techniques with this setup, as we saw in the video, so I definitely recommend going back and watching it. But unfortunately, we're going to have to save some of those more in-depth discussions for a future date. So let's go ahead and move over to the third LDPM setup. As we see, this is pretty similar to the setup before, but instead of the different LDPM smooth values being determined by granularity, they're actually determined based off of being the equivalent of different LDPM smooths from different intervals. There's really no easy way to describe it, but it's pretty straightforward. The purple line is LDPM smooth for 30 minutes with a back window of 10. But suppose we also want to mimic what the 1 hour LDPM looks like. Well, since it's double the amount of time, we can simply go and add another LDPM and double the look back time frame. This gives us the equivalent of the 1 hour LDPM. And so with the next line, let's say we want to look at the 4 hour LDPM with a back window of 10. So we double it again, but we don't really double it. There is an equation, I'll pop it up on the screen, but the take home for the daily is a 10, 20, 80, and 160. That is the look back windows that I use the most. 80 is equivalent or approximate to the 4 hour LDPM. So that means that the green line here is the same line we would see if we were on the 4 hour interval. And of course here we're only on the 30-minute interval. And lastly, we replicate the daily LDPM by using a look back time frame of 160. And what this allows us to do is effectively look at the same values that are in the table, but visually, and we can see throughout the day if there is a upcoming LDPM cross, it looks like it's forming. We can see how well the different levels of liquidity, either the daily pool, the 4 hour pool, the 1 hour, the 30-minute, and so on, how they respond and behave to the price trying to perform a crossover. So we see here, earlier in the week, August 5th, that's not earlier in the week, August 5th, 2022. Well, we see at some point in time, there was a potential crossover event. We were pretty bearish on the upper time frames or on the smaller time frames, but we see that the price rebounded off of the LDPM daily, and now we're retesting it again. This is helpful again if I think that there is a overall more medium to long term change on the horizon, and I'll go to these smaller time frames to get a view of the more local liquidity environments, but I also want to maintain a more larger, broader view of liquidity, and so being able to mimic the different time frames of LDPM can be pretty helpful. And not only can we mimic the daily time frame with LDPM, we can mimic a daily LDPM on the scanner with the very similar technique. So we just move over to the scanner and we change the look back time frame to 160. And so now we are mimicking a LDPM scanner that is operating on the daily time frame with a look back window of 10. And one of the interesting things that we can start to visualize with this setup is, for instance, if we look at Tesla testing the daily LDPM smooth back on the 5th of August 2022, we can notice that there were no other daily crossover events occurring throughout the market. However, once this crossed over the daily a few days later, on the 9th of August 2022, we do start to get a few crossover events popping up. So this allows us to see how other stocks are performing and how liquidity is in other aspects of the market, while also keeping a closer eye on the specific equity that we want. It's a pretty cool setup. So with this setup, let's just go ahead and, like usual, look at how this performs with some randomly chosen past date. And so, yeah, guys, that's the changes and improvements coming to LDPM on TradingView. In some future videos, I would like to, and I'm planning on going a little bit more in depth to the different trading styles that are available to you when a person uses LDPM. But for now, I hope that this has been a really nice review of LDPM, the changes, the new scanner, and some standard setups that can be utilized with this new combination of tools. I hope this video has been enjoyable and insightful. And if there are any comments, questions, or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out or leave a comment section below, and I'll get back to you. All right, guys, happy trading, and until next time, bye.